1. I was recently reminded of a malicious compliance I did as a kid. For context, I have an extremely bad peanut and tree nut allergy. If I eat or touch peanuts or nuts, I can go into anaphylactic shock, meaning my throat closes up and I basically choke to death. I carry an EpiPen with me at all times because of this. Additional information on this teacher: she hated children, like the type of teacher who yells at kids if they got something incorrect. For the sake of keeping everything anonymous, I'll call her Mrs. Idiot, and refer to myself as me. With that out of the way, onto the story. I was in first grade, and by this time I had a good grasp of how bad my allergy was. Always read labels, never eat others' home-cooked meals, and that I shouldn't trust someone just because they say I don't think it has nuts in it. If you don't know, then don't offer those foods to small children who may not know any better. It was first grade, and I was having fun coloring something on paper waiting for my teacher. As I was finishing drawing, my teacher got out a fun activity worksheet involving candy. If I remember correctly, it involved counting or something math-related. As she was passing out the worksheets and candy, I noticed that there were M&Ms, which I am allergic to. The interaction went something like this. "Mrs. Idiot, I can't have these, I'm allergic." "They're original M&Ms, they don't have peanuts in them." "But my mom says I'm allergic to the originals too." "They're fine, you can have them." To this day, I don't know why a teacher would ever tell a kid with allergies to eat something the kid thinks or knows they're allergic to. Also, while original M&Ms don't have peanuts or nuts directly in them, they're made on the same equipment as peanut M&Ms. This exchange went on for a while, with the idiotic teacher telling me that they're fine and me saying they're not. I think the teacher actually believed I was purposely trying to annoy her. "If you don't start behaving, I'm going to call your mother and you will be in big trouble." Younger me realized that my mom was just going to say the same thing. Instead of telling her that, I sat there and smiled at the teacher and said, "Okay, call her." I remember wondering why the teacher just didn't believe me. Looking back, that teacher definitely hated being told she was wrong, especially by a first grader. The idiot teacher looked annoyed, but smug. I guess thinking that my mom would yell at me for not wanting to die, or have a giant needle put in my thigh, and being rushed to the hospital. Now, I don't know the full exchange between my mom and the idiot teacher because this was so long ago, and my mom doesn't remember exactly what was said. Just that she was extremely angry. I know she tore into my teacher because me and everyone who was present in class could hear my mom yelling through the phone. I think for the first time ever I saw my idiotic teacher was actually nervous. After my mom tore the teacher a new one, the teacher brought me to the corner of the room and handed me a bag of Skittles, which she apparently had the entire time. It sucked being alone for the activity, but I happily did my assignment eating my bag of Skittles. Knowing full well my teacher was simmering at her desk, annoyed that a 7-year-old knew better than she did. Later, it was revealed that my mom sent an email to the school's principal, which luckily for the idiotic teacher's case was my mom's second draft, and had nicer words in it. That teacher had to do a refresher course on allergies by the nurse, which was shown to her already at the beginning of the year. I guess my school was desperate for teachers because she continued to teach at that school even though she had other incidents. As much as I'd like to say I ate the M&Ms and watched as her career tanked, blowing up like a Thanksgiving Day parade balloon, I did not. As the wise Sid the Sloth said, "No thanks, I choose life." 2. Hi, I'm a 21-year-old woman, work at a gym. I got a phone call from this guy demanding to speak to a manager or owner. I am the only staff who works in the office, and the owner is my manager, so most requests and complaints filter through me first. My owner is not going to just talk to a rando just because you say so. I keep on asking him what this is about, and how I can just pass a message along to the owner, because he didn't identify his name or any business, so I was just very confused. Every time I asked him how I could help him, he ignored me and kept asking when my owner will be in. Then the man asks, "What's your owner's name?" This weirded me out, so I just said, "I don't understand." He then cut me off before I could finish my sentence and raised his voice saying, "You don't understand? Can you not speak English? Is this not your first language?" So I said, "Okay, well, I'm not going to be spoken to like this." He said back, "Oh yeah? Well, you're an effing idiot," and hung up. I was so shocked because I was so calm and polite this whole time. Me being petty, I first searched his phone number in our system to see if he was a member. Nothing came up under his number, so I googled the number and found a website where people review phone numbers, reviews included below. "A guy from this number," redacted phone number, "tried to reach the business owner many times, very persistent and annoying and harassing. He's from the company who tries to sell the vending machine." Number 2. "Had the same experience, must be a scam, he would not stop calling." The next day, I got the personal trainer to call this dude back from my phone, pretending to be the general manager. My coworker gave a fake name, address, and just wasted his time for 10 minutes, pretending that we were interested in his vending machine service. From that phone call, we got an email with his first and last name and the company he works for. I then go ahead and call the corporate number for his company and reach customer service. I explained the whole thing to them and just wanted to make sure that his company knows how he talks to people. I'm sure I'm not the first person he spoke to like this, and I don't have any accent. English is my first language. But even if it wasn't, that is not okay to say something like that, that's racist. So I just hope his boss hears this and he is humiliated for his behavior. The company itself doesn't have any reviews about this person, but it's probably because he refused to give me any reason or information on why he needed to speak to a manager. They will call me to follow up. Edit, August 15th. I got a call back yesterday and the customer service representative said, "Hi, I just wanted to let you know that we have contacted his bosses." This guy works for a contracted company that they hire to locate vending machines, as well as our general manager. "He wanted me to tell you that we're so appalled and shocked by his behavior and we really appreciate your feedback. My manager wanted me to ask if you'd be willing to give us your email address so we can send you a gift card." I obviously said yes, I would very much appreciate that. I got an email with a $50 Amazon gift card sent to me. So happy I profited off this guy being a dickhead. I'll tell you what the email said. I also really appreciate the staff who handled this. "Hello, my name is Bob. I'm a manager with the vending machine company. I'm currently out of the country on holiday, but I'm taking the time to reach out to you regarding your experience with an independent location contractor on a phone call recently. Please accept our apology for the unprofessional manner of this call. I want to assure you that this is not the way we do business, and I am taking measures to make sure that this will not happen again. While our locations are handled by independent contractors, there's a level of courtesy and respect expected by anyone promoting our brand, and in this case that clearly did not happen. It is only by receiving feedback that we can make changes to improve and make sure our policies are being followed. Today I sent you an Amazon gift card as a token of our appreciation for taking your time to contact us. Kind regards." 3. For this story, you need to know that I am the kind of person who will go a great distance for a good laugh, as you will see below. I love this story and we tell it every once in a while, even though it has been more than 20 years. I live in the US and I own an IT support company. Many years ago, I used a cell phone company named Nextel. They had this great push-to-talk feature that turned your phone into a walkie-talkie, which was perfect for communicating with coworkers in my IT work. However, their customer service was a nightmare. Any time I needed to contact them, it would take at least 30 to 40 minutes on hold. Eventually, I had to switch to a cheaper service, which meant getting a new number. Now you can port your number to a new carrier, but back then you had to change numbers if you switched carriers. I cancelled all the phones on our plan except for mine, which I downgraded to an emergency plan costing about $10 a month. I left the old phone plugged in at my office and set my voicemail message to instruct callers of my new number. The phone just sat next to my desk on a shelf, plugged into a charger, so that I could see if anyone called. I could also hear the phone make a sound when it disconnected from the cellular network, and then a different sound when it connected to the cellular network. It disconnected and connected constantly there in my office. I would estimate that it only stayed connected to the network about 50% of the time. After 6 months, I decided to cancel it. I had to wait on hold for the customary 30 to 40 minutes just to cancel my service. After telling the service rep that I was always dropping off the network and that I had already switched services, they verified the service problems on my account and cancelled my entire plan. I wasn't under any contract at the time, so there were no problems cancelling my service with Nextel. As expected, I got my final bill. It was somewhere around $10 since that was my monthly plan, just the emergency plan, and I didn't make any phone calls. I paid the bill and was happy to be done with that carrier. Then the next month I got a bill for 4 cents. Yes, just 4 cents. I figured it was a clerical error and ignored it, expecting them to write it off, but no. Each month, another bill for 4 cents arrived. I was incredulous. I checked the postmark and saw that the postage to send me the bill was costing them 10 times more than the bill itself. And they kept sending the bill every month. I could have paid the bill, but it seemed ridiculous to write a check for 4 cents and spend more on a stamp. After 6 months, I finally had enough and decided on some very petty malicious compliance. I decided to invest the 40 minutes on hold to call Nextel to work this out. By golly, if they wanted my 4 cents, I would give them my 4 cents. I planned to wait on hold for 40 minutes and pay the 4 cents with a credit card, knowing it would cost them more in fees. I told my wife about my plan, thinking it was the perfect malicious compliance story. But my wife, the true master of malicious compliance, suggested an even better idea. Call and ask if I could make payments on the 4 cents, splitting it into 2 payments on my credit card. Oh my God. I was in the presence of malicious royalty. I called, waited on hold for 40 to 45 minutes, and finally got through to a representative. The representative sounded like one of those airport terminal attendants who act like they're checking your reservations, but instead they're writing a Stephen King-length novel. I could hear the clickety-clackety sound of the keyboard. The female representative was constantly typing as I explained that I had cancelled my service, but kept getting the final bill and proposed making payments. The representative, typing away, said she'd look up my account. As she typed away at her keyboard, I explained that I had gotten the final bill and that I would like to set up a payment plan to take care of the outstanding balance. I told her that I would like to pay half on my credit card today and pay the remaining half the following month. She was agreeing with me and typing away when suddenly she stopped typing and went quiet. "Sir?" "Yes?" "Are you aware of the balance amount?" "Yes, 4 cents." "Yes. I figured that you really wanted that 4 cents because you keep spending all this postage to send me bills each month. So I'm just calling you to take care of it." After a brief silence, I hear the clickety-clack of the keyboard again, and she said that I would not have to worry about the balance because she was writing it off. I insisted on giving my credit card for the first half of the payment, but she firmly dismissed it and assured me I wouldn't get any more bills. My wife's suggestion turned a simple prank into a masterpiece of malicious compliance. I may be good at it, but my wife is another level. And you really have to want to do malicious compliance to wait on hold for 40 minutes. Four, backstory. I used to work in hotels years ago. The hotel I worked at has a policy where there must be at least one staff member at the hotel 24/7. I worked the unenviable but fireproof position of part-time front desk and relief night audit, so I never knew when I was going to be working. 16-hour shifts were uncommon but expected of me when the main night audit called in sick. This story. I had a middle manager who got bored and liked to ruffle feathers for entertainment. Annoying, but I only had to deal with it for 2 or 3 days a week because no one else wants to cover the night audit, so I suck it up and deal. They also loved to sleep in and would routinely call in late in the mornings. I really couldn't stand them, but they were my boss, so after giving the essential information and passed the torch from the night audit to the morning manager and crew, I clocked out promptly and got out of the line of fire. So I thought. I got a call waking me up at 11 a.m. because I was sleeping off my graveyard shift that night. I was told to report to the hotel for a disciplinary meeting that includes middle manager and the general manager of the hotel, my boss's boss. I asked them what the meeting was about, and they replied that it was due to my excessive use of overtime. I then asked them if I could come in before my shift that night, so that I could actually get some sleep for my next graveyard shift. They replied that I would have to arrive within the hour, took me 30 minutes to drive to get there, or they would tack on insubordination, or some other nonsense to my file as well. I needed the job for rent, so I complied and got to the hotel half asleep. As I'm driving, I'm trying to figure out how to explain away the nice overtime additions on my paycheck. Took me a solid 10 minutes, but I remembered that the middle manager had yet to actually show up on time for the past month. That wakes me up more, and I show up to the meeting absolutely cheerful and smiling, much to the displeasure of the GM and my boss. Boss goes on a tirade about how abusing company time is horrible in many different ways. I no longer have my grin, but I'm also unfazed by the dressing down and let them blow out their steam that was likely put on them by payroll or HR, about how my paychecks were getting too fat for their liking. This is confirmed by a shorter but more professional dressing down by my GM, about me costing the company excess money, and that I should know better because I run the hotel's books. I calmly state that all of the overtime statements were true and that I would like to compare my punch times to the staffing schedule and the start-end times of the people I was relieving in the evening, and who was relieving me in the morning. I explained to them that I was only staying on until the next crew relieved me, and I had sufficient time to brief the incoming crew per the corporate policy of the hotel must be manned 24/7. They do and see that there is only a 3 to 5 minute overlap between my shift and the person relieving me. GM looks angry, and the middle manager went from smug to looking like they got their hand caught in the cookie jar, as their clock-ins showed usually 7-ish and sometimes even 7:30, when their start time was 6. I was then told by the GM that they would reimburse me for the minutes to drive to and from the hotel, as well as the duration of the meeting, and that the write-up was being dropped in light of new information. Fallout. Middle manager still made my life miserable until I left, but at least they never gave me grief about overtime after that, and actually started showing up to work at 6 a.m., and not snoozing until 7. My paychecks were less, but at least I got more sleep because I was now better able to beat the morning commute at the end of my shift. I knew my paychecks were coming in hefty for my wage. I never made a stink about staying late because hotels pay maybe 5 cents more than minimum wage if you work graveyard shifts. I kept my mouth shut about my check. I needed that extra cash and dealt with the sleep deprivation for the almost guaranteed additional hour of overtime at the expense of a lazy and petty boss. I had my moment of how do I save myself on the way to work, and was conveniently able to throw my rabble-rousing manager under the bus in one go. 5. So this is once again at that one popular fast food company that can be recognized by the sound of a singular bong in its jingle. I was working on the drive-thru window with my coworker, who was a good friend of mine. It was business as usual, until when this lady did the normal routine of ordering food. Nothing went wrong. I confirmed with her if her order was correct. She drove up. My coworker charged her, handed the food over, and we tipped our hats goodbye. Was that the end of it? No. This was just the beginning. The same lady came back sounding angry and complaining. She says we forgot one taco from her food, so I told her to come forward, and we'll have it rectified. Usually, if people complain about one simple missing item, we just make it for free, to keep the customer happy, and to keep the line moving. But that didn't happen. She began shouting obscenities at my coworker through the window. I didn't hear exactly what was said, as I had someone else talking to me in my ear, but I asked my coworker what's going on. We gave her the food, right? Yes, they said, but they want their whole order refunded and remade. The AGM was in the office, but I called her over, asking for assistance with a customer. The AGM sighed and walked up. At this point, the customer started swearing at us and is now starting to hold up the line. AGM tells me and my coworker to leave the area as I'll handle it. I stayed back for a little bit, but had another customer in my ear again and had to go back to the window to do my job. Then me and my coworker just helped the rest of the customers and apologized for the long wait. Was that the end? Of course not. This is where the story gets good. 7 hours later, at the tail end of my shift, AGM calls me into the office. I walk in and she says, "You will be receiving a write-up. Sign here." "What for?" I asked. "The customer said that you and your co-worker were giving them attitude and disrespecting them. That's unacceptable," she said. "But I didn't say anything to the customer. My co-worker spoke to them the most," I said. "Doesn't matter. That's what the customer said happened, so I listened to the customer. Sign the write-up and you can go home." I was dumbfounded, I was confused, and I was angry. AGM didn't even ask me or my co-worker to share our sides of the story, and made it a situation where I had to admit fault to something that wasn't true. I put the form down on the table and said, "No, I refuse to sign this. I will fight this write-up." "Okay," they said, then told me to talk to someone from corporate office about it. Then said I should send my coworker in because they wanted to talk to her too. I was angry. I warned my coworker about the write-up, that she would be forced to sign, and told her to not. After my shift was done, I went home fuming. I thought to myself, eventually my general manager is going to get wind of this, and AGM is going to paint us as the bad guy and the customer as the victim. You know what? I'll make my own incident report. I spent the next few hours typing up a 6-page incident report on everything I could remember, including what was said, and in the papers I called out and exposed AGM on her horrible handling of the situation, and how I believed it was retaliation against me for another incident totally unrelated to this, where I got her in trouble after calling out. I wrote down everything about what happened, and even had it proofread by a friend who was an English major. The next 2 days I had the 6 pages in my work bag, ready like a loaded pistol, when my general manager confronted me, and sure enough, he came along. "Can you come with me to the office?" the GM said. "Is this about what AGM told you?" I said. "Yes, I just want to talk to you about a few things," he said. "I'll do you one better." I reached into my work bag and handed him my incident report. "That is everything that happened, and you can talk to my co-worker to validate everything that's in the papers." At first he chuckled and said, "You wrote me a novel. I'm flattered." And he sat down in the office, permitting me to go back to work as he read it. Later that day, as the GM was clocking out, he said that he would read it at home and text me when he's done. Later, during my shift, I get a call from my general manager. He said that he read the whole thing and he would like to apologize to me about the situation I was in, and first and foremost, both mine and my co-workers' write-ups would be nullified. He said that everything that had been done was done wrong. Write-ups should have been handed out at least 1 workday later, not the day of. If there was no incident report filed of the problem, AGM didn't talk to either me or my coworker, plus the write-up form was already filled out on my behalf and just needed my signature to validate it. He said he looked at the write-up form and he knew that it wasn't my handwriting. He said that the AGM would be reprimanded and will be receiving coaching on how to properly handle future similar situations. Let me tell you, it felt so nice walking by the office, seeing my AGM watching a 2-hour-long video quiz about employee relations and harassment. A video quiz that took them 3 tries to pass, a total of 6 hours over the span of 3 days. AGM never apologized to me, but along with a few side-eye glances, she did start speaking to me in a more respectful tone of voice. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Revenge is Ice Cream, episode 272. Before you go, please hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already done so. Alright, if you'd like to get early access to the videos, get that by supporting me on my Patreon page, which is linked for you in the description, as are links to my Discord server and my merchandise store on Teespring. You can also leave a tip by clicking on the heart with the $sign underneath the video. While it is not required, I do very much appreciate it. Right, no other business today, so let's move along to Hellfreezer's question of the day. And today's question is there a snack that you particularly enjoy, but every time you eat it, you think, oh, this is so messy, is it really worth it? For me, it's something called a snowball. How do I explain what this is? It's basically a semi-dense cake in like 2 half rounds with jam in the middle, sometimes icing, but usually like jam, or jelly, if you will. Then they're sandwiched together, rolled and kind of iced in, and then covered in coconut. They're very, very yummy, but they are as messy as they sound to eat. And afterwards, Mom was like, oh, I have to get the vacuum out now. I swear I'm not a messy eater, it's just the coconut tends to go everywhere. Especially if you if it's in a container and you accidentally bump the container while you're getting up to throw it out. Oh dear. But I'll never stop eating them. Let me know what you think in a comment below. And before we go, let's take a look at the answer of the day from a previous video. And today's answer comes from Revenge's Ice Cream 370. And it was, what is the rarest animal you've ever seen? And today's answer comes from, I had that a second ago, Nightblade Allen. I knew you were there. I once got to play with a Barbary lion cub. Those are extinct in the wild, but have a few small breeding populations in captivity, one being the state where I live in. His name was Jabari, and he was 3 to 4 months old. Felt like petting wool or felt, and he left teeth marks in my leather wrist guard play wrestling. Wish I had pictures. Thank you very much for your answer, Nightblade Allen. And with that, I am a sleepy hell freezer, and I'm going to head off for now, so until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourself.